Ethan Brooks wiped the grease from his hands and squinted at the tiny control panel in front of him. The old alien freighter he was fixing groaned under its own weight, and sparks jumped from a broken wire. He muttered to himself, mostly because no one else was there to hear him. His workshop on the edge of the orbiting station was quiet, dusty, and full of half-finished machines. Ethan liked it that way. The station didn't care about him much. And he didn't care about the station. It was a small life, but it was his. As he leaned over the panel, the comm system beeped. A soft, polite tone filled the room. Ethan frowned. The station rarely sent messages, except for bills or warnings about unpaid docking fees. He picked up the receiver. "Ethan Brooks?" a calm voice asked. "This is the Galactic Registry Office. We have an important matter to discuss." Ethan leaned back in his chair. He had heard of the registry, of course. They handled matters that involved ownership of ships, property, or anything official in the galaxy. But it had been years since he had any reason to call them. "What do you want?" he said, his voice rough from years of talking to machines instead of people. "You have inherited a property," the voice said. "It is very large and unusual. It belonged to a human explorer who passed away without close relatives. You are listed as the heir. Please confirm your identity and presence to accept it." Ethan laughed. It was a short, sharp laugh. He had inherited nothing in his life, not even a simple old tool set from his father. He had no relatives to speak of. "You're kidding. What is it?" "We cannot disclose it until you accept," the voice said. Ethan gritted his teeth. He had no time for games. He asked for coordinates. After a pause, they sent him a set of numbers. The next day, Ethan made his way to the docking bay. The station's airlock doors opened slowly, revealing a dark space filled with stars and drifting debris. The coordinates led him to the edge of the sector, far from any busy lanes. There, floating silently in space, was a ship unlike any he had ever seen. It was enormous, stretching far beyond the size of any freighter or cruiser he had repaired in his life. Its surface was dull and scratched, as though it had been drifting for centuries. Parts of it glowed faintly, as if waiting to be noticed. Ethan's hands trembled. He had worked on large ships before, but nothing this massive. He floated closer in his small repair shuttle, staring at the hull. The ship's design was strange, almost organic, with curves that made no sense to human eyes. The docking clamps barely reached the surface, and the bay doors of his shuttle felt tiny against the ship's scale. He swallowed and tried to steady himself. "This is real," he whispered. "I actually own this?" He tied the docking lines and carefully moved inside the airlock. As he floated through the corridors, he realized that the ship was silent. Too silent. There were no lights on, no hum of engines, just the faint hiss of the airlock and his own breathing. The walls were covered in panels, some cracked, some missing entirely. The ship looked abandoned, and yet there was a presence that made him uneasy. It felt as if the ship was watching him. Ethan walked through wide halls that stretched for kilometers, each more massive than the last. In places, the floor felt like it could crumble under his weight, and he had to step carefully. He ran his hands along the panels, checking for circuits or openings. He knew how to fix broken systems, but this ship was like nothing he had seen. Its technology was alien, but somehow familiar in ways he could not explain. After hours of walking, he reached the control room. It was enormous, almost the size of a small city, with a single, central console that was dark and lifeless. Ethan floated toward it, his heart pounding. The buttons were unmarked, the screens dead. He reached out and touched one. Nothing. Then another. The screen flickered, and a soft light appeared, forming shapes that slowly made sense. A holographic map of the galaxy spread across the room, and a voice spoke. "Human detected," it said simply. Ethan jumped. His hands shook. He had expected nothing. Certainly not a voice. Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I am the ship's intelligence," it said. "You are recognized as the heir of this vessel. You are authorized to access all systems. This ship responds only to humans of your kind." Ethan blinked. He had never imagined anything like this. Machines spoke to him. Yes, but never like this. Never with intelligence or recognition. He looked at the console, trying to understand how it could know him. Why it would obey him. I don't understand," he said finally. "Why me? You are human. This ship was built to follow humans. You are the first in many years to claim it," the voice replied. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and excitement. He had no training for this, no experience with ships like this. But the possibilities were endless. He floated around the control room, touching panels and levers. Slowly, lights began to flicker on throughout the ship. Corridors that were dark became lit. The hum of engines started softly, and doors that had been sealed for decades opened with a hiss. Ethan could feel the power contained within its walls, a power that dwarfed anything he had ever worked on. He spent hours exploring the ship, discovering rooms filled with alien tools, strange machinery, and panels with symbols he did not recognize. Some areas were damaged beyond repair, and he made notes, wondering if he could fix them. He had repaired many ships in his life, but this was different. This was not just about tools and circuits. It was about understanding something far beyond human technology. As he moved through the ship, Ethan thought about the galaxy outside. He knew other humans had left traces here and there, but none had ever controlled a ship like this. Alien races dominated the stars, and humans were considered weak and simple. Now, floating through the corridors of the largest ship in the galaxy, Ethan realized that humans might not be weak at all. Perhaps it was the galaxy that had forgotten them. He paused in a large chamber that seemed to be a storage bay. The ceiling was impossibly high, and shadows danced along the walls. Crates floated in low gravity, some filled with alien artifacts, some with supplies he did not understand. Ethan ran his hands along one of the crates, feeling the texture of materials older than any human settlement he had ever visited. He wondered who had built this ship, why it had been abandoned, and what secrets it held. As night approached on the station, Ethan decided to rest. He found a small cabin that seemed designed for humans, and settled on a narrow bed. Sleep came fitfully. He dreamed of the ship moving through stars, of alien fleets bowing before a human at the helm, of machines that obeyed him because he was human. He woke with a start, heart pounding, realizing that the dream had not been a dream. The ship was waiting, alive, and he was its master. Over the next few days, Ethan explored more. He mapped the corridors, checked the engines, and started small repairs. Every day he discovered something new. A panel that could project holograms. A storage room filled with tools that no human had seen before. Engines that could move faster than anything in the known galaxy. He worked slowly, cautiously, always aware that he was alone in a ship of unimaginable size. One afternoon, as Ethan floated through a long hall, he heard a sound from outside. The ship's sensors had picked up something approaching. He checked the readings. A small alien scouting ship was nearby, curious or perhaps suspicious. Ethan felt a surge of panic. He had no weapons, no defense, nothing but his wits. He realized then that the galaxy outside might not welcome a human in possession of this giant ship, but the ship seemed to sense his fear. Lights in the hull pulsed gently, and the engines hummed with a soft power. It was as if the vessel itself reassured him, telling him that he belonged here, that he had nothing to fear as long as he remained human. Ethan took a deep breath and floated toward the control room. He touched the console, and the holographic maps flickered on. The alien ship outside was tiny compared to this vessel. He felt a thrill he had never known. For the first time in his life, Ethan Brooks understood that his life had changed forever. He had inherited more than a ship. He had inherited power, responsibility, and perhaps even a chance to remind the galaxy that humans were not as small or weak as everyone believed. And as he floated through the endless corridors of the giant ship, his hands still trembling, he felt a strange, steady confidence. The ship waited. The stars waited. And Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. Ethan woke slowly, feeling the soft vibration of the ship beneath him. The giant vessel had grown quiet during the night, but there was still a subtle hum in the walls that reminded him it was alive. He floated out of the small cabin he had claimed and looked around the vast control room. The holographic maps still glowed softly, showing stars and planets he had never visited. He touched the console again, and the lights pulsed slightly. The ship seemed to recognize him more each day, responding to his presence with small gestures, almost like it was learning to trust him. He decided to explore more of the ship today. He moved through corridors that stretched for miles, each passage wider and taller than any human building. He passed rooms filled with machinery, some active, some dormant, all humming with faint energy. Some rooms had no labels, only strange symbols he could not read. Ethan had no idea what most of it did, but he could sense the power contained within the walls. He wondered who had built it and why humans had been chosen to control it. As he entered one of the larger chambers, he noticed a series of panels that seemed damaged. Wires hung loosely, and some parts were missing. Ethan felt a thrill run through him. This was work he could do. It was a challenge, and he liked challenges. He pulled out his small toolkit, floating carefully so as not to bump anything, and began reconnecting the circuits. His hands worked with practiced skill, though the size of the panels made every movement feel monumental. After several hours, the lights flickered on. The hum of energy grew stronger. Ethan stepped back and smiled. The ship responded. It was alive again, in some small way, because of him. As he moved to another part of the ship, he noticed the corridors outside starting to shift slightly. Doors he had seen closed were now open, and lights flickered on in rooms he had not entered before. The ship was adjusting to his presence, as though it was learning from him. Ethan's curiosity grew. He touched a wall panel, and the ship's intelligence spoke again, though softly this time. Human, your touch activates systems. This vessel recognizes your hands. Ethan blinked. The voice sounded calm, almost gentle. He had spent his life talking to machines, fixing broken ships, and repairing engines. But this was different. This was not just a machine. It seemed to understand him. I don't know how to use all this, he admitted. I can fix things, but I don't understand everything. You will learn, the ship replied. Your kind is capable of understanding what others cannot. Patience is sufficient. Ethan floated in the hall, considering the words. He had always thought humans were too small, too weak, too simple to control powerful machines like this. And yet here he was. And the ship responded to him. It was humbling, and it filled him with a strange confidence. He realized that the ship was more than a tool. It was a living record of human ingenuity, a reminder that humans had once walked the galaxy with power and respect. Over the next several days, Ethan continued repairs. He discovered that some systems had been untouched for over 100 years. He cleaned debris from engine cores, patched broken conduits, and realigned navigation panels. Every action brought a small response from the ship. Lights glowed brighter. Engines hummed louder. Doors opened automatically. The ship seemed to react to his determination, recognizing his skill and effort. It was learning, growing, and Ethan was at the center of it all. One afternoon, while checking the ship's storage decks, Ethan found a section filled with ancient logs. They were written in a language he did not know, but the symbols pulsed faintly when he touched them. The ship projected holograms from the logs, showing images of humans long gone, exploring planets, commanding fleets, and interacting with alien civilizations. Ethan watched, fascinated. Humans had been everywhere, it seemed, and yet they had been forgotten by most of the galaxy. The ship remembered. The ship remembered humans. Ethan felt a surge of pride and fear at the same time. Pride, because he was touching a part of human history that no one else knew about. Fear because he realized the galaxy might not be kind to someone who controlled a ship this powerful. He remembered the alien scouts he had seen days before, and a chill ran down his spine. What would they think if they realized that a human, one small mechanic, controlled this vessel? Later that day, Ethan decided to test some of the ship's systems. He floated back to the control room and examined the navigation panel. It seemed damaged, but he managed to realign it enough to display the surrounding space in high detail. He watched as the sensors picked up distant objects, comets, asteroids, and ships moving far away. He could see entire fleets in the distance, though he had no idea who they belonged to. He touched a series of levers, curious. The engines responded with a soft vibration that ran through the floor and walls. Ethan laughed softly. The power was incredible, more than he had imagined. He could move the ship through the galaxy faster than any transport he had worked on before. The thought made him dizzy with excitement. If he could control this ship, if he could repair all the systems, he could change everything. Humans could matter again. The days passed, and Ethan began to notice something else. The ship seemed to anticipate his actions. If he went to a room with broken panels, the lights flickered, guiding him. If he touched a console, the ship displayed the information he needed. It was not just alive. It was learning, adapting to him. The idea both thrilled and frightened him. He had never experienced anything like this. Machines followed orders. Yes, but this ship, it obeyed instinctively, almost like it had a mind of its own. One night, as Ethan floated through a maintenance corridor, he heard a strange noise. It was a low hum, different from the usual vibration of the engines. He followed the sound to a side chamber he had not entered before. Inside, he found a large panel with strange inscriptions. When he touched it, the ship projected a hologram of a star system, one he had never seen in any galactic chart. This is a human star system. It is ancient. It existed before current records. It belongs to your kind. Ethan stared at the hologram. He had heard legends of lost human colonies, but he had never imagined seeing one. The ship had preserved knowledge that no one else had. It was a treasure beyond measure. He realized that he was not just inheriting a ship. He was inheriting a history, a legacy, and a responsibility. The following day, he decided to explore the ship further, going deeper into sections marked as restricted. The corridors narrowed, the air colder, and the hum of the engines grew louder. Ethan moved cautiously, aware that the ship might react to his presence. He touched panels, opened doors, and discovered storage rooms filled with alien devices, weapons, and tools. Many of them were broken. But Ethan could see how they had worked. He felt a mix of fear and excitement. This ship was more powerful than he could imagine, but it needed him to bring it back to life. As he floated through the ship, Ethan thought about the galaxy outside. Alien races controlled most systems, treating humans as weak and simple. But he knew now that humans had once been respected, feared even. And with this ship, he could remind them. He smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and determination. It was a long road, and he was alone, but he was not helpless. He had skills, patience, and a ship that seemed to trust him. Over the next weeks, Ethan worked tirelessly. He repaired engine cores, recalibrated navigation systems, and restored communications panels. Every small repair caused the ship to respond. Lights glowing brighter, energy humming louder. He floated through endless corridors, sometimes exhausted, sometimes exhilarated. He could feel the ship growing stronger, more alive. And he felt a strange connection to it. It was not just a machine. It was a partner, an extension of human ingenuity. And it was learning to follow him, the first human it had seen in over 100 years. One day, while examining a damaged section of the hull, Ethan heard an alert from the ship's sensors. An alien scouting fleet had approached the sector again. This time, there were multiple ships, their shapes and weapons visible on the holographic display. Ethan felt a pang of fear. He had no experience with battle, and these ships could destroy him in moments. Yet the ship seemed calm, its engines vibrating gently, almost reassuring him. He touched the controls carefully. The sensors responded, highlighting weaknesses in the alien ships. The weapons systems hummed softly, though he had not activated them yet. Ethan realized that the ship could defend itself, and more importantly, it could defend him. A small thrill ran through him. For the first time, he felt that humans might not be as powerless as the galaxy believed. The ship remembered humans, and now, it remembered him. Ethan floated back to the control room, heart pounding, and touched the main console. The lights pulsed gently, and the voice spoke again. "Human, you are learning. We will face threats together. Your kind has been forgotten, but not by us." Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. He realized that he was not just fixing a ship. He was restoring hope. He was becoming a human the galaxy could not ignore. A human who might remind everyone that size and numbers did not define power. It was understanding, skill, and determination that mattered. And as he floated in the vast control room, surrounded by lights, panels, and the gentle hum of engines, Ethan Brooks smiled. He had inherited more than a ship. He had inherited the chance to change the story of humans in the galaxy. One repair, one discovery, one touch at a time. Ethan had grown used to the ship's hum and glow. Every day he floated through the massive corridors, repairing panels, reconnecting wires, and exploring rooms filled with alien machinery. The ship was alive, and it seemed to respond to his presence more confidently now. It pulsed softly as he touched the controls. Lights brightened when he entered a room, and systems slowly came back online after decades of silence. Ethan had never imagined that a human could have this kind of power. And yet, here he was, standing in the control room of the largest ship in the galaxy, feeling both small and enormous at the same time. He had only started testing the ship's engines and navigation systems in small ways. Small bursts of power moved the ship a few kilometers in the station's orbit. Even this small movement caused ripples through the docking bay, and station workers watched in awe as a ship thought to be abandoned for 100 years shifted its massive hull. Ethan smiled, but he knew this was only the beginning. He had to be careful. Alien races would notice soon. They always noticed anything unusual. His first warning came in the form of a message. It was a short, cold transmission from a nearby alien patrol. Their language was sharp, full of clicks and harsh sounds. But the meaning was clear. They had detected the giant ship's activation. Ethan had barely managed to understand the message using the ship's translator. They wanted to know who was operating it. When Ethan replied simply, "I am," the aliens seemed confused. They had never expected a human to awaken such a vessel. Over the next few days, more signals appeared. Small scouting ships approached, each trying to get a look at the massive ship. Ethan floated through the control room, checking the sensors, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. The ship, sensing his unease, pulsed softly, reassuring him. It had remembered humans once, and now it remembered him. The alien ships were small, but there were many, and Ethan realized that he was no longer alone. The galaxy was watching. He decided to test the ship's defensive systems. It was time to see if the vessel could protect him. He floated to the weapons array, unsure of how to activate them. The panels had alien symbols, and some parts were broken. He touched a lever carefully, and the ship responded immediately. Energy shields flickered on across the hull. Automated turrets hummed softly, scanning the approaching fleet. Ethan could feel the power vibrating through the floor. He had never imagined controlling so much energy. Yet the ship seemed to trust him, letting him take control without hesitation. As the alien ships got closer, Ethan noticed something surprising. They hesitated. Small lights on their hulls indicated communication signals between them. The lead ship appeared to scan the giant vessel. And then, the others slowed. Ethan realized that the aliens recognized the ship, though they had not expected a human to operate it. Fear, or at least caution, spread through their fleet. Ethan's heart raced. He had never wanted to fight, but suddenly, he held more power than he had ever imagined. He experimented cautiously. He moved a lever, and the ship emitted a low hum that rippled through space. The alien ships shook slightly as energy fields formed around the hull. Ethan felt a thrill. He had not wanted war, but now he understood why the galaxy had once feared humans. A single human could awaken a vessel that made fleets hesitate. It was not weapons alone. It was control, knowledge, and skill. Ethan had all three, and the ship responded to him perfectly. Over the next week, Ethan tested more systems. He discovered propulsion modes that could move the ship faster than any known technology. He activated communication arrays that allowed him to intercept alien signals, learning more about fleets and patrols in the surrounding space. Every day he explored new rooms, repaired broken machinery, and discovered hidden systems. The ship was a treasure trove of knowledge and power. It was alive, learning from him, and growing stronger with each repair he made. One day, while inspecting a storage deck, Ethan found a room filled with ancient records of human history. They were holographic projections, showing humans traveling to distant planets, commanding fleets, and interacting with alien civilizations. Ethan watched, fascinated. Humans had been everywhere once, but most of the galaxy had forgotten. The ship remembered, and now it had passed that memory to him. He realized that he was standing at the center of a story the galaxy had almost erased. As he worked, the alien fleets grew bolder. A patrol approached the sector in numbers larger than he had seen before. Ethan felt a chill. The scouts he had seen before had been curious, perhaps cautious. Now, they were coming with intent. But the ship seemed calm, as if it knew what to do. Ethan moved through the control room, touching panels, opening communications channels, and preparing the vessel. The engines hummed louder. Shields glowed. Weapons arrays powered on, though he did not touch the levers. The ship was ready, anticipating his needs. The first encounter came at night. Ethan floated in the main control room, watching as alien ships appeared on the sensors. They formed a line, circling the massive vessel. Ethan's heart pounded, but he felt the ship beneath him, alive and aware. When the lead alien ship fired a scanning beam, the ship responded automatically. Energy pulses deflected the beam harmlessly, and the alien vessels faltered. Ethan realized that the vessel did more than follow orders. It protected him instinctively. Over the next few days, Ethan's fame, or at least his presence, spread quietly. Alien scouts reported the activation of the human-operated giant ship. Word traveled through communication networks and black market channels on the galaxy, which had once ignored humans, now whispered about the mechanic who had awakened a legendary vessel. Some laughed, thinking it impossible. Others paused, remembering stories of humans who had once walked the stars with power and cunning. Ethan did not know they were talking about him, but he could sense the change. The galaxy had begun to notice. He continued repairs, but now with more urgency. Every day, he moved through the ship, restoring systems the aliens had thought lost forever. He repaired energy conduits, recalibrated propulsion units, and restored communication systems. Each repair brought a stronger response from the ship, pulsing through the hull, filling corridors with light and sound. Ethan realized that he was not just fixing a vessel. He was reawakening a guardian, a machine built to protect humans and remember their power. Then came the first direct threat. A small fleet of alien fighters approached the ship's location, armed and ready. Ethan floated through the control room, hands trembling but steadying with purpose. He touched the weapons panel, activating energy shields and turrets. The ship hummed, responding perfectly to his commands. The alien fighters opened fire, but their shots bounced harmlessly off the shields. Ethan felt a thrill, fear turning into excitement. He had never imagined this, never dreamed that he could hold so much power in his hands. As the engagement continued, Ethan realized something. The ship did not just follow his commands, it anticipated them. Energy beams formed in the paths of the enemy ships. Automated weapons tracked targets with incredible speed. The aliens faltered, their attacks ineffective against the massive human vessel. Ethan felt a surge of pride. Humans had been underestimated for centuries. But here, in this moment, a single human mechanic controlled a ship that could challenge entire fleets. After the skirmish ended, the alien fighters retreated. Ethan floated in the control room, heart pounding, hands still shaking from adrenaline. The ship hummed softly, as if acknowledging his success. He realized that the galaxy was no longer a safe place for a quiet mechanic. He had attracted attention, both fearful and dangerous. Yet he also realized that he had allies he could trust, the ship itself. Alive and loyal, learning from him every day. Ethan knew the weeks ahead would be difficult. More fleets would come. Alien races would want to claim the ship. They would challenge him, testing his courage, his skill, and his resolve. But he also knew that he had something no one else could control. A vessel that responded only to humans. A machine that remembered what the galaxy had forgotten. And most importantly, he had himself, a simple mechanic who had discovered that humans could still matter. He spent the following days preparing the ship further. He repaired damaged rooms, restored energy cores, and mapped the ship in detail. He discovered hidden compartments filled with weapons, supplies, and tools. The ship's intelligence spoke more frequently, guiding him, showing him systems he could repair, and warning him of potential dangers. Ethan felt a connection growing, not just to the vessel, but to a history long forgotten, to humans who had walked the stars before him. As he floated through the massive corridors, Ethan considered the future. He could leave, sell the ship, hide from alien fleets, but he knew now that he could not ignore it. The ship had chosen him, and he had chosen it. Together, they could show the galaxy that humans were not powerless, not forgotten, and not weak. The thought filled him with both fear and determination. He was alone, yes, but he was powerful in ways he had never imagined. And as he floated through the endless halls, touching panels, listening to the hum of engines, Ethan Brooks realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was the captain of a ship that had not sailed for 100 years. A ship that remembered humans. A ship that could challenge fleets. And perhaps, in time, remind the galaxy of the power of his kind. Ethan floated through the control room, his hands steady on the console. The giant ship hummed around him, alive and alert. After weeks of repairs, exploration, and tests, he finally understood the vessel in a way he never had before. It was not just a machine. It was a guardian, a recorder of human history, and a weapon of unimaginable power. And now, the galaxy knew he existed. Alien fleets had already started rumors about a human controlling the legendary ship, and Ethan knew they would come in force soon. He spent the morning reviewing sensor readings. Distant fleets were gathering, moving cautiously toward his location. Some were curious, some were suspicious, and some, he knew, were aggressive. Ethan considered his options. He could leave the sector quietly, hiding the ship in uncharted space. He could sell it or abandon it, but he could not ignore the calls from the ship itself. It seemed to guide him, pushing him toward action. And Ethan, despite being a simple mechanic, felt a strange confidence growing inside him. The ship had chosen him, and he could not refuse. He began preparing for the encounters. The ship's intelligence helped him map out defensive strategies. Automated weapons systems were fully online, shields at maximum capacity, and engines capable of incredible maneuvers were ready. Ethan had never commanded anything like this before, yet the ship made it almost instinctive. It responded to his movements, anticipating his choices, and adjusting its systems. Every time he touched a lever or panel, it seemed to whisper, "We are ready." The first fleet arrived mid-morning. Ethan watched on the holographic display as dozens of alien ships approached. They moved carefully, scanning for weaknesses, communicating constantly in clicks and tones he could barely understand. He had never led a fleet, never been in a battle. Yet here he was, the center of power in the galaxy. He touched the controls, and the ship hummed louder, lights pulsing in rhythm with his movements. As the aliens moved closer, Ethan tested a small maneuver. He tilted the ship slightly, and energy pulses flowed along the hull. The shields flared, deflecting scanning beams from the alien fleet. He noticed their hesitation. They had not expected the human to control the vessel, and they had not anticipated its speed or intelligence. Ethan felt a thrill. He was not fighting yet, not attacking, just showing power, and it was enough. Over the next several hours, more fleets arrived. Reports from scouts, intercepted communications, and distant transmissions made it clear. The galaxy was taking notice. Alien commanders debated quietly, some advocating retreat, others calling for investigation or attack. Ethan watched them carefully. He did not want unnecessary conflict, but he knew he could not hide. The ship had given him power, yes, but it had also given him responsibility. Humans had been forgotten, and now it was time to remind everyone. He decided to communicate. A holographic panel projected his face to the approaching fleets, his simple human features visible across the stars. He spoke in a calm, steady voice, using the translator to ensure the aliens understood. "I am Ethan Brooks. This ship belongs to humans. It will not harm you unless provoked. Respect this territory, and we can avoid conflict." There was silence. Ethan could feel the tension over the sensors. Then, one of the alien commanders spoke, his voice sharp but measured. "Human, how do you control the vessel?" "I am human," Ethan replied simply. "It obeys humans. Nothing more." The aliens hesitated. They had heard stories of humans once, tales from centuries ago, when humans commanded fleets and shaped galactic politics. They had dismissed the stories as myth. Now, the myth stood before them, real and undeniable. Ethan felt the weight of history pressing on him. He was no longer a simple mechanic. He was a symbol, a reminder of human potential. Over the next few days, Ethan established a routine. He explored new areas of the ship, repaired additional systems, and strengthened the vessel's defenses. The ship itself seemed to grow stronger, more confident. Lights pulsed along corridors that had been dark for centuries. Engines thrummed with renewed energy, and weapon arrays scanned space automatically, ready for any threat. Ethan felt a strange pride. This ship had waited for a human to awaken it, and he had answered that call. Alien fleets approached cautiously, sometimes testing the ship's response. Ethan allowed minor challenges, moving the vessel in careful maneuvers, demonstrating its strength without attacking. He wanted them to understand that humans had returned, not through violence, but through intelligence and skill. Slowly, respect replaced fear. Alien commanders began communicating, asking questions, requesting negotiations. Ethan floated in the control room, calm but alert. He had never expected diplomacy to be part of his life, but it seemed necessary now. He realized that the ship itself had become a teacher. Through its systems, Ethan learned more about tactics, engineering, and alien technology than he could have imagined. Every repair, every interaction with controls, every experiment brought him closer to mastery. And yet, he remained humble. He remembered the countless hours of fixing freighters and shuttle engines, the quiet life he had led on the orbital dock. He was still a mechanic at heart, even as he controlled a vessel capable of reshaping the galaxy. One day, as Ethan reviewed sensor readings, he noticed something unusual. A massive fleet, larger than anything he had seen, was gathering at the edge of the sector. They moved with precision, their intent clear. This was no reconnaissance mission. They were coming for the ship. Ethan felt a chill, but he did not panic. He had prepared. He had the ship. He had learned its systems, understood its moods, and trusted its responses. He floated to the control panel, hands steady, and activated defensive protocols. The ship's energy surged in response, shielding corridors, powering weapons, and extending its reach across space. When the alien fleet arrived, Ethan demonstrated the ship's full power. Energy pulses radiated across space, forcing the fleet to slow and reorganize. Weapons arrays tracked every ship automatically, ready to strike, though Ethan did not give the order. The alien commanders hesitated. They had expected a human to be powerless, to rely on cunning or allies. Now, they faced a vessel controlled by a single human, capable of outmaneuvering and overpowering fleets without even firing. Ethan felt a thrill and a deep sense of responsibility. He could destroy them all, yes, but he chose restraint. After hours of maneuvering and demonstration, the alien fleet retreated. Ethan allowed them space, showing mercy while asserting control. Communications came again. This time, respectful and cautious. They asked questions, sought understanding, and offered to negotiate. Ethan realized that he had changed the galaxy's perception of humans. No longer small, weak, or insignificant, humans could command power through intelligence, skill, and understanding. He smiled, floating in the massive control room, the hum of engines filling him with confidence. Over the following weeks, Ethan solidified his place. He repaired hidden systems, restored long-forgotten engines, and mapped every corridor of the ship. He established communication channels with alien leaders, demonstrating that humans were capable of both strength and wisdom. The ship itself continued to grow, responding to his touch, guiding him, teaching him. Ethan had become not just a mechanic, but a captain, a guardian, and a symbol of human potential. One evening, as he floated through the main corridor, Ethan paused to look out at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, filled with civilizations that had long ignored humans. Yet now, humans mattered again, at least in part because of one mechanic and a ship that remembered. He realized that his journey was only beginning. The ship would take him farther, teach him more, and together, they would remind the galaxy of human ingenuity and courage. And as Ethan Brooks floated in the quiet glow of the ship, he felt calm, confident, and ready. The galaxy had noticed, alien fleets had learned, and humans would not be forgotten. All it had taken was patience, skill, and a simple mechanic's determination to step forward and awaken what had been waiting for 100 years. The ship hummed around him, alive and loyal. And Ethan knew that together, they could face whatever the galaxy sent next. He touched the main console one last time that night, feeling the vibrations of engines, shields, and energy fields flowing through the ship. "We are ready," he whispered. The ship pulsed softly, as if replying, and the stars outside seemed to stretch farther, filled with possibilities. Ethan smiled. Humans had returned, not with armies, but with courage, intelligence, and a giant ship that would remember them forever.